Welcome, Flip Clock fans. Back to the Future, a 1985 science fiction film starring Michael J. Fox, Christopher Lloyd, Leah Thompson, Crispin Glover, and Thomas F. Wilson. Set in 1985, the story follows Marty McFly, a teenager accidentally sent back to 1955 in a time-traveling DeLorean automobile built by his eccentric scientist friend, Dr. Emmett Doc Brown. Trapped in the past, Marty inadvertently prevents his future parents' meeting, threatening his existence, and is forced to reconcile the pair and somehow get back to the future. Perhaps you already knew that, and very likely you've heard of the Back to the Future flip clock. The clock appeared on the shelf of the headboard of Marty McFly's bed. This is a well-known flip clock in the world of flip clocks, and usually goes for a high dollar on the internet due to interest of both flip clock fans and fans of the movie. It's the Panasonic RC-6015, a flip clock radio that was actually one of Panasonic's bargain flip clocks. Collectors and restorers of flip clocks know this clock radio to have electronically stood up well to the passage of time. But unfortunately, the clock is also known for having a brittle case. So you know all that, but did you know that this was not the first flip clock to appear in the movie? We know that the famous flip clock belonged to Marty McFly, Michael J. Fox. But the opening scene of the first in the Back to the Future trilogy shows a vast array of clocks at the home of Doc Brown. And there it is. It is clearly a Copal flip clock and is commonly believed to be the Copal 801. It is a very hard to find flip clock, much harder than Marty McFly's clock, and is often quite expensive. I did finally get one of these clocks in the recent past directly from Japan, and I'd like to go through it with you, starting from its disassembled state to the complete clock. First, well, I whitened it. It needed it to some degree. It's not actually a white clock, more of an off-white or cream color, I suppose, but you could see the yellowing, and since I've been in whitening mode, and there was plenty of hydrogen peroxide available in 40-volume developer at the time, I went ahead and brightened up the case. There aren't that many parts and pieces to come off to get the clock open. The first thing you'll notice is that the flip clock mechanism is huge. The advancement gears are unique to this clock. I've never seen this arrangement of gears in a flip clock. The mechanism's knob connects to a rod with its position controlled by springs. When pulled down, the rod engages a face gear system to allow the clock to be advanced. I'll show this in action in just a couple of minutes. The very large flip tiles have a plastic banding system in place. It seems to keep the tiles in proper position to facilitate flipping. Surprisingly, the motor is just a simple, normal-sized Copal 2 flip clock motor. I was a bit surprised by this, but I suppose I shouldn't have been. These are great little synchronous motors and have lasted 50-some years. Another surprise was finding this motor to be rated for 60 Hz, 120 volts, with no mechanism for changing from 50 to 60 Hz operation as would be expected in Japan. This would be accomplished through a lever system that would change the gear train. Japan is unique in the world for its electric grids. Firstly, the country runs on 100 volts. Most of the rest of the world uses 220 volts, and the United States and some other places uses 110 to 120 volts. But more strangely, half of the country uses electricity at a frequency of 60 Hz, like in the United States. This would be the western portion of the country, including the major city of Osaka. Eastern areas, which includes Tokyo, use the European standard of 50 Hz. I have seen it written that in the 19th century, the Osaka-controlled areas in the west went with U.S.-made generators, which produced electricity at 60 Hz. Maybe just to be in opposition to the east, led by Tokyo, who acquired their generators from German sources, running at 50 Hz. For whatever reason, the two incompatible grids have created a huge problem because the two halves of the country cannot easily share electricity. Stations dedicated to changing the frequency one way or the other are few and inefficient. This has led to many electronics to this day having the ability to be run using 50 or 60 Hz, as this clock case seems to indicate. But we now know that this particular clock was not configured in this way. Here we are continuing the reassembly of the clock. The huge face can be easily cleaned due to its ease of removal. Preparing it to be placed back on the clock consists of simply pressing in this component. The enormous mechanism simply slides in and is secured to the cabinet by 4 screws from the back. Attachment of the knob depends on a small piece of relatively flexible wire that goes through holes in the brass sleeve of the knob and through a hole in the rod. I resecured this wire by pressing with my finger as I turn the knob which wraps the wire around the knob sleeve. Getting back to the clock setting mechanism, as I mentioned, the clock setting knob connects to a rod with its position controlled by springs. When the knob is pulled down, the rod engages the clock with what can best be described as a face gear system. What's interesting is that when the knob is turned clockwise, the clock advances. If you turn it the wrong way, counterclockwise, a kind of ratcheting slip clutch prevents any damage at all from occurring. It just makes this clicking sound. Nice. Here's our clock face assembly. Just press it into place. Then secure it to the clock through 4 small machine screws from the backside. The clock can be hung on a wall or set on a flat surface. If the clock is to be positioned on a table or shelf, you would need to slide in this stand. This stand resembles the cantilever chair, first marketed in the 1930s, described variously as in the style of streamlined modern, Bauhaus, or mid-century modern. These chairs remained popular through the 1970s. The Copal 801 flip clock, Doc Brown's flip clock from the first Back to the Future movie of the mid-1980s. Clearly, it stands above all the other Copals in my collection. It has appeal to any collector of Copals and to fans of the movie Back to the Future. Sure, it's great to own a clock like the cool time-traveling kid Marty, but how about owning a clock like the one owned by the man who invented time travel? While this clock is a 24-hour version and the movie version can be seen to be the AM/PM style, it remains a centerpiece of my Copal collection. Hope this has been an interesting review of this clock for you. Thanks for taking the time.